Hey Coven Cool, Witchy Mitchy here, and this week we're going to discuss how to sidestep inorganic narrative structure and lack of cohesive adventuring motivation in your campaign in a few simple steps.
Because you're breaking up the band, Yoko!
As I said in last week's video, this will be a compare and contrast of Vox Machina and the Mighty Nine, until about the lead up to TravelerCon. So, once again, spoilers for those if you haven't watched the first two Critical Role campaigns. Now, before people think I'm here to trash the Mighty Nine in its entirety, I'm not. Matt actually corrected course, largely by changing a single statement into a single question and giving lovable NPCs more playtime after this point in the campaign. And that's partly what I want to discuss as methods to avoid the first 100 or so episodes of awkwardness that rode largely on dick jokes.
Maybe it's making their drumstick or something.
And they all look like dicks!
Yes! And then at the end of the week, they all beat their dicks as hard as they can.
The Mighty Nine, up until the lead up to TravelerCon, had virtually no bonding time. Either a character died, players were absent, but the audience wasn't really left with a cohesive motivation for those characters to stay together other than the mere fact that they chose to do so.
You made the right choice.
I decided I didn't want your child growing up without a father.
It was even discussed several times outright in dialogue, which did not make it better. People can argue up and down how Bo had a crush on Jester, who was head over heels in love with Ford, but we weren't given any of that as major character points. And a simple crush won't have you toppling literal fucking gods. And you can argue that Caleb and Not, who is Veth by the point we're actually discussing, have reason to travel together from the trauma bond of prison. However, there's no reason for Veth to keep going with the whole adventuring business beyond regaining her true form. Her arc was over. She's even starting to manage her alcoholism, but she's also abandoning her family a bit in order to adventure. This is awkwardly brought up a few times and then seemingly brushed off in character. Up until that point, we'd seen 1. The party go on a pirate adventure together that Caduceus, Bo, Jester, Not, Caleb, and Yasha had no reason to go on in what could very well have come to a head with a low-level party facing off with Ford's patron sea god, who they ultimately just chose not to release. These are virtual strangers, and Ashley is rarely there to play as Yasha, and again, nobody's gonna go up against a god for a stranger. 2. Then we see the party get entangled in a possible war intrigue, which barely involved them at all, and Yasha is yanked away into a situation in which no reasonable semi-stranger would chase after her, risking life and limb to stop something that should be the responsibility of far more powerful people.
It's over 9,000!
In what we basically find out is an imprisoned evil god. Yet again, a party that can best be described as low to mid-level will be facing off with overpowered monsters to stop the rising of yet another god, which they thwart again for a virtual stranger. 3. The party stops a war between two corrupt kingdoms that they have no real love for or allegiance to, and come to find out that they'd turned an evil character who they'd thought of as a friend until this point somewhat soft, and found out he'd betrayed them in the process. 4. Then they set out for Rumblecusp with all due haste, an island of strangers, again, with lost memories where they have to face off with an astral sea monster that is bonded with a volcano. This is simply in order to make the island safe for TravelerCon. Do they have to do this? No. Do we know any likable NPCs enough to be attached to them for any particular period of time actually spent with them? Not really. Yeza, Luke, and Jester's mom are the most prevalent that come to mind, and we barely know them. And they're on the mainland far away from this new development, where the island can't really harm them. The time we spend with them is far too infrequent because the group is too busy globetrotting. I will say this, Mercer seemed dead set on setting this party against something godlike at a level they had no business going up against something that powerful. The imagery of eyes and tentacles and blobbiness being the big sell here. Whether or not he meant on 3 separate occasions to recycle the same idea into the same campaign for the low-level party with no reason to stay together, or to stop literal fucking gods? Stopping gods seemed like the ultimate goal, And once they stopped a low-rent sea god in person, rather than by choice or simply stopping henchmen from raising it like the last 2 times, things about the campaign make a sudden and inexplicable change. How? 2 things. The first of which was Matt slowed things down. Instead of using the phrase, "for the sake of time," to fast forward through large chunks of campaign, he started asking, "What do you want to do?" allowing the party to role-play their time together and bonding the characters further to their individual causes and to each other.
No, he's our friend.
All any of you do is yell at each other. You are not friends.
You're right. We're family.
Why was this necessary in the Mighty Nine and not Vox Machina? First, Matt did this from the start of Vox Machina instead of waiting until almost episode 110. How many times did Scanlan and Grog disappear to their favored pleasure houses? And second, in Vox Machina, the ragtag group of mercenaries already knew each other from the first time we saw them. Percy had been rescued from a prison. The twins were trauma bonded by a dick father and the loss of a mother, and Pike had saved Grog's life. Arguably another of Sam's characters, Scanlan, again, had the least reason to stay, but you could also argue it was self-preservation and his friendship with Grog that kept him in the party. Vox Machina had pasts with family we actually got to see for longer than 2 to 5 minutes per 30 episodes. They had Allura, they had Gilmore, they had NPCs who they and the audience both obviously adored. Now, very early on in Vox Machina, the Briarwoods show up to a feast where they fight Vox Machina, getting Vox Machina made into outlaws until the Briarwoods are defeated. They continue to send ghost-like creatures against the house-arrested party, forcing them to work together to escape and clear their good name by taking the Briarwoods out. Everything pointed them towards working together to a mutually beneficial goal. The Mighty Nine didn't really have any of that initially. Didn't have its motivations clearly set to make remaining a team a necessity.
Bye, Felicia.
And was just kind of a disparate group of people with differing goals until the slowdown just before TravelerCon, and just a few episodes after returning from the COVID hiatus. Don't get me wrong, each character is a brilliant, complex creation, but much like we don't get enough time to like any NPCs on the level that we loved Gilmore, we don't get enough interactive alone time to show a more than superficial bond between the Mighty Nine. No way would strangers try that hard, risking life and limb to stop the unleashing of a god for another stranger unless it very directly impacted them.
Talk to your children about not talking to strangers.
And certainly not at such a low level, nor so many times.
Again.
It's at this point Matt changes the campaign entirely. After the defeat of Vokodo, he reintroduced a concept that roped in Molly's story arc with the eyes hidden in Molly's tattoos, with Nonagon, Lucian, and the Eyes of Nine. He allowed the party ample time to interact during downtime, and far more frequently asks how the party would like to spend their time, rather than dictating, for the sake of time, things be cut short, so that travel and all of its potential interactions are suddenly cut off. The enemies become more complex and more human.
Say, call me Dad.
The NPCs we really care about are all instantly revisited, and are a little deeper for each visit, and they're all happy and love to see the party. We even seemingly get a new one in a new shop with an Australian accent, but at this point, she remains to be seen again, as, once again, the party globetrots north chasing Lucian. Through Caleb's ability to teleport and his reflavoring of Mordenkainen's magnificent mansion as Widogast's nascent 9-sided tower, say that 10 times fast, we gain exactly the type of home on the road we've been lacking this entire time. Everyone has their own room. Everyone is free to interact in any of the spaces as they see fit. Do I know for a fact that during COVID, Mercer, Marisha, and even Liam went back to watch the Mighty Nine campaign and realized all of these flaws, perhaps devising amongst themselves a way to fix it? No. I don't know that for sure, and it still takes a few episodes after coming back for them to defeat Vokodo. But, instantly during TravelerCon, even the Traveler, dubious trickster that he is thrown into a more vulnerable and instantly more likable light. even going so far as to vow to be more considerate of Jester and less manipulative, and apologizing for his previous behavior. We care more because we're finally given some downtime with the characters, where they repeat more than the same 3 tired lines of poor justification for a party staying together. We care more because the NPCs are around more and somewhat familiar by this point, and we start to get in deeper with them in the same way that we did with Vox Machina's NPCs early on.
Who are you? This is my family. I found it all on my own. It's little and broken, but still good. Yeah, still good.
I think a certain part of the Mighty Nine's initial failing to keep the group together by believable means, at least in a cohesive narrative, was on Matt for, first and foremost, throwing apocalypse-level events at a low-level party and having them repeatedly stop vaguely interchangeable, many-eyed, sea-like or abyssal gods from surfacing, and for cutting out half of the travel to keep marching towards whatever the impending threat was. I think as the DM and as an entertainer, he got a little overexcited to throw the party into a fray that would somehow one-up Vox Machina in terms of visuals for the viewers. Part of it can be blamed, I'm sure, on what may have been an entirely unplanned early character death of Molly, and the absence of Laura, Travis, and Ashley early on. But this recovery shows us that a team can be brought together very easily, and a team can be given motivations that matter, and you can do this very early in your campaign in ways that Matt failed to do.
Either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals.
Here it is, the advice part of the video. The part where I give you a few easy steps and the explanations behind them so that you can either use them in campaigns or yell at me in the comments for how wrong I am. 1. Have your players choose a team name. This is something the Mighty Nine did, but they failed to establish the rest of these steps early on, so just keep watching for everything else. But here's why, before we move on. Maybe they have to announce their presence in an arena, or a party, or figure out how to address themselves in as few words as possible. It will make your players, your audience, and your player characters feel like they are
Part of a team.
2. Don't cut out travel time. And don't constantly feel the need to throw random encounters at your players to interrupt unless roleplay is stalling. Allow the party to interact. Do things to facilitate one-on-ones between player characters, like keeping watch during a long rest. 3. Give your party a home on the road. Maybe an NPC gifts them with a wand that can cast some form of Mordenkainen's magnificent mansion, at any level, once per day. Maybe they have a ship with multiple private quarters. Maybe they're part of a caravan of covered wagons, stay in many tents, or in some other way have separate chambers, i.e. ones that facilitate private conversations. 4. Throw an early threat into the game that gets your entire party made into outlaws or arrested, and make sure that they have to stick together to clear their good name. Hell, have them wake up in a prison, and the early villain in question is monologuing into the cell before vanishing. 5. Always keep one of 2 things. A reason that the party needs to go up against a great evil, such as Critical Role did with clearing the name of Vox Machina, forcing their hand against the Briarwoods, or a greater evil that includes small goals that forward the goals or unresolved backstory issues of at least 3 to 4 party members. Again, such as Critical Role did with Vox Machina, collecting the vestiges of divergence from different places that intertwine their backstories into the main narrative. 6. Make it necessary for the party to function each in their own most basic roles of the team through something like a heist mission to steal something that's needed by their employer or by an NPC that they love. Having clearly defined roles early on helps each party member know their place in this team/family dynamic. And if they can get arrested for doing it and then instead have to break out of prison, even better. 7. Create lovable NPCs. For the love of fucking Bahamut, this is vital. Your characters should actively care about the people of your world.
You never had it so good.
True love. He said true love, Matt.
Throw a funny voice on someone. Throw flirtatiousness at the party, given it's not a hard line of your table's players. Gilmore was flirtatious with Vax, and it was instantly endearing how smitten the enchanter was with the half-elf. Have them joke with the party. Have rapport. Disrespect the party's hated patron or enemy first thing after meeting them.
I make him bear the Humperdinck suffers.
Humiliations galore.
I did a lick nation.
That is a noble cause. Give me the 65. I'm on the job.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend, and laughter is the best way into most players' hearts. And force your party into situations that require them to see your lovable NPCs a lot. Whether this is because they have the best shop in all the land, or they hold some secret, or are doing research for the party, these lovable fuckers will be people that your party sees on the regular, or adopt and even take with them on an adventure or two. Get creative and let your party dictate the terms of relationships until they find someone they latch onto, then use the fuck out of that attachment.
A wise man once told me, family don't end in blood. But it doesn't start there either.
And, by all fucking means, use that to great emotional effect. Maybe your villains poison, maim, or kidnap them at some point, and the party has to save them. Maybe they betray the party, or are killed by a traitor to the party, or sacrifice themselves.
I said to take me. Take me! My compliment, sir! Take her and get out!
But you can use these NPCs that your characters and players love to, let me repeat this again, great
Emotional damage!
to make them care about the stakes of what's happening to the people of your world. That feeling of protectiveness will bond the party to each other as well as to the NPC in question, and they will care even more about saving your world. Keep in mind here that you do not decide which of your NPCs that this is. Look for ones that your party already likes to interact with. Keep throwing likable NPCs at them until one sticks. There is zero harm in making multiple likable people in your world, and it makes it that much more surprising when one of them is a traitor, murderer, coward, etc.
Etc.
And yeah, those are the 7 steps. 1. A team name. 2. Uninterrupted travel. 3. Home on the road. 4. An early common threat. 5. Intertwining unresolved backstory, whether by common threat or egg hunt. 6. Make them use the base features of their classes or subclasses that define them as different in the group. And finally, 7. Lovable NPCs. Next week, I might do something about making lovable NPCs. Who knows? As always, mash all the buttons like this is a fighter game to like, comment, subscribe, share, and please, please, please consider donating to my transition fund linked in the GoFundMe below. And as always, stay cool, witches.